Hi guys, Danny Fitzy here, and today I'm going to be going over the starter build I was using for Delirium League. And I started off as a assassin, Orb of Storms, Arc, and then I transitioned into Wave of Conviction as my kind of single target, and to help proc Orb of Storms. Because if you don't know why you're stood in Orb of Storms, if you cast another lightning skill, it basically triggers the Orb of Storms off of you and chains off a mob. So if you keep casting while you're inside it, you basically double the damage it ticks over. So while you're stood in it, you want to be spamming something, at least for like single target. While you're mapping, you literally just drop it and it'll just instantly chain everything and kill everything. And it's the reason why I picked this build to start off with, because I knew going into Delirium League it was going to be a lot of map clear, a lot of running and trying to deal damage while you're moving, and getting those reward stacks and mob count as high as possible. And it has exactly been that. It's obviously been a bit of an up and down journey for the first week of the league. I haven't played too much. Honestly, I've kind of constrained myself not to go too hard. I've pretty much been a casual, to be honest. I think it's a combination of not wanting to burn myself out straight away, and also some of the league mechanics and issues. I was waiting for them to get resolved before I, fully commit and start playing 10 hours a day or something stupid. I think most of my streams have only been 3 or 4 hours, and then I've just called it there. Obviously, the first few days I played a lot. Like 7, 8, 10 hours on the first few days, to get my character up to maps as quickly as possible, because that's when I start enjoying the game. I don't enjoy leveling, especially. I don't mind leveling with leveling gear, but leveling from a fresh start in PoE, I just find complete AIDS, and I'm not a fan of it, but I can get through it quick enough now where it doesn't bother me as much. And this build was fairly smooth. I had no problems at all where I was like, damn, I've got no damage or no clear and I can't kill this boss. And that happens a lot when you play melee. You'll just not find a weapon and you just can't do any damage. Not a problem with this build, so I recommend it as a league starter. It's worked. It's been extremely smooth for me. There's a clear path of transition as you go up, and for me it was just starting off as Orb of Storms Arc. Arc you can pick up at level 12 and you can just pretty much go all the way. You can still use Arc at this point in the build, but I thought Wave of Conviction is going to give me a little bit more single target. It's going to apply exposure, which is going to give me a bit more damage on my Orb Storms as well, which procs quite often, obviously, when you're stood there in a boss. And you'll probably end up seeing the... I'll let this play out until I've killed the boss here. So you can see a little bit of single target damage. It's not exactly amazing because these are only T78 maps, but I'll force it in so we can see it happen. But you can see the clear of the build is just insane. Orb of Storms has always been insane, but I've got an Impulsor as well, so we're getting explosions. I do plan, if I keep playing this build, I do plan to get an exploded chest, and then opens the options up to getting some other stuff on the chest, like chance to gain a frenzy on hit or something, because I'm generating frenzies through Ice Bite on this build currently. So and cold damage helps proc the heralds anyway, and my heralds are buffed. I'm kind of taking advantage of the assassin base crit you get, so my heralds are actually kind of cleaving quite hard. Not like an exploded chest would, but it cleans up fairly well. And as you can see through the delirium mobs, and what's really nice about Orb of Storms is it does damage while you can just run around. So you can just drop Orb of Storms, kills most of the stuff. If anything's not within range or needs an extra tick, you have time to just go loot while it's doing damage. So it fits the league and the theme and the kind of way you have to play it to get the most reward out of the league mechanic really well. The only problem you'll ever have in this build is single target, and that all just depends on which skill you use and how hard you scale it, because up until I think it was this day of this stream, I was using like a 4-link Wave of Conviction. Then I finally got a 5-link. I couldn't 6-link my staff, but I made like a really nice 2-hander, which is what you're seeing now. So you're seeing like the pinnacle of the build, really. I'll show you my gear after. It's nothing amazing. I haven't really been blessed with currency. The only thing I found all league was a div card. Is it called the Fiend, which was worth 9x. 9x is a pretty good amount, but I spent about half of that on fossils trying to craft the staff. So and I got it on like my second to last set of fossils, so that was really, really lucky. And you can see here, map boss, pretty decent damage. You'll notice every now and then it's like decent, bam, you just absolutely clap the boss. I think in a combination there, his culling strikes helped me there, but obviously a lot of lightning damage, and we're using a ring that helps us shock enemies that are frozen, and it also adds conversions. That means you're doing a lot more cold damage, proc and herald much more reliably. And as you can see, I mean, it's alright damage. I didn't want to stand. I'm very squishy, so I didn't want to stand there in DPS. As you can see, every time she hits me, she's pretty much half health for me. You know, I mean, this is like, I think it was like a T8 or a T9 Conqueror. If you can stand there in DPS, you should probably be dead by now. But unfortunately, I do have to move because I only have like 4k life and pretty whack resist, and I literally spam my flasks in a boss fight. I'm an idiot. So, but yeah, we're using dash for movement. You can use flame dash, obviously, but I wanted to try out dash, and it's actually surprisingly very good now. But unfortunately, you can't use the enchant on the helm with it because you have to use. Well, you don't have to, but I opt to use the Orb of Storms enchant rather than a dash, and also, up to this point, you know, I was testing things anyway, so I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. But there's some gameplay for you. We will whack this back onto the main game now. We'll go back to our non-existent hideout. I think my hideout's scuffed. Yep, I am in the wrong hideout. But while I'm loading my hideout, I would just say, if you haven't already started playing the league, I do recommend this as a league starter. It's a very, very strong build. It just scales so well. Honestly, I was very surprised at how smooth it was, because I had a friend who I was leveling with, and he had a bit of an issue after about Act 7 where his damage just fell off a cliff, and I've experienced that before. But with Arc and Orb of Storms, I just felt like I was always just above the level I needed to be, and I never dropped below. So that was really nice. What am I doing now? I don't know why I'm doing this in a video, but I'm importing my hideout because I don't know what I've done. Wow, and if you want my hideout, I might leave a download link. This is a hideout I made myself. Well, very cool. So let's zoom it in. Look, got my horns already. So we'll go over the items, the gems, and then the passive tree. Obviously, we got this to talk about. Big pog there. I'm going to try and, you know, get this down into about 30-minute video, so I'm not going to over-explain things, but if there's anything I skip over, just, you know, comment below and I'll try to reply. So straight up, we are Orb of Storms, and that is our 6 link. You can get 2 6 links because I'm using a 2-hander, but our main 6 link is Orb of Storms, and we're socketing that in a impulsor. I'll do the gear first, then the gem links. But yeah, we got an impulsor. I 6 linked this myself at about 500 fusions, so I don't know if I made even or not. I don't know. I have to check the price of 6 links. But I got a pretty decent one here, and this is always good, for solid choice for any lightning build. It gives you life, which is always nice. Damage, increased effective shock. Obviously, the explosion is epic for map clear. That is probably one of the key parts of the build that just makes it feel so smooth and fluid, while you're just running through and blowing everything up. And you're unaffected by shock, which is nice. You know, if you get shocked, you take a lot more damage. So I mean, it just makes it so you can't get one shot as often. So it's always nice. Solid chest. It's quite cheap unlinked. So if you want to try your luck, try and link it. That's what I did. I got half lucky, I say. I mean, 500 fusions is pretty lucky, but at the start of the league, 500 fusions is still pretty brutal. This is my crafted weapon. It's not the weapon I was looking for. I was looking for a +3 to all lightning skill gems, but I ended up crafting this that had socketed spells to do more damage, and I'm putting my Wave of Conviction in this staff, so that means my single target skill is doing 20% more damage, like half a link. So I'm basically on a 5.5 link here. Got a T2 flat damage to spells. It doesn't really matter which one you get. Obviously, lightning would have been preferred, or even cold. But fire actually synergizes well with Cinder Swallow because you need fire damage to proc the ignite. So instead of having it on an Abyss Jewel, I've got it on my weapon, and it's a T2 roll, so it's pretty juicy amount of damage added. We got quite an insane cast speed roll. It's a T2 as well. Cast speed's always nice. The faster you cast, the more damage you put out. It's a DPS increase. And then we got increased crit to spells. We're an assassin. We got a lot of crit, but you know the global crit, because it's an eclipse staff as well, just means our crit is pretty much 100%. I haven't actually checked it, but I know at least on low life and full life we're 100% crit because of the ascendancy point. And then against mobs with like 60% health, I haven't worked it out, but it's probably pretty much up there with power charges up. And then I crafted the increased spell damage and non-chaos extra chaos, because it's just the biggest craft damage multiplier you can get for spells. The non-chaos extra chaos is huge. And I had to I don't know if he's online, this guy here, I had to get the craft off him, so I had to pay a little bit extra, as like a tip, because I don't have the craft. I don't have a level 1 version of this. This is a 1 exalt craft, the T1, but honestly you can get away with the one that's slightly lower. It's just the non-chaos extra chaos is so massive. Think of it as like literally a pure 8% more damage added on. It just takes all your damage and gives that 8% of all of that as chaos. So yeah, as you can see on our tooltip here, look, we got like almost 2,000 to 3,000 chaos damage. Sane Hideout, 216,000 DPS. Before this, I was using a really cheap staff, and this was one of the reasons why I used it as a leveling build, because this staff is so incredibly cheap and so good for the build. You can literally do all the content with this staff, and you're looking for the one that's the Anger Rod West. There's a couple of them, ones like North and whatever. You want this one that has the damage to spells, like the flat damage, and then the damage penetration, and they all have the +2, I believe, on there, which is one of the biggest rolls on the thing. And it cost me 5C at the start of the league, so I imagine now it's probably like 1 alchemy or 1C, and it's just insane. It gives you huge a nice amount of lightning damage plus flat lightning damage spells, +2 to your lightning damage spells, so your single target and your Robo Storms +2 is huge for spell gems. All your base damage is on the gem for a spell, so +2 is like 15 to 20% more damage. You can think of it that way. And then 20% lightning pen's quite nice. Not all our damage is lightning pen, so you're not going to get the full effect of that, but it's nice to have like at least 20% penetration. That helps against a single target and the tougher uniques and stuff. And it's just so cost effective, that staff. I mean, you could go through the whole game with that staff, no problem. But obviously I fell into a lot of currency, so I was like, well, I have fun crafting, I'm going to craft myself a nice new staff. And this thing was a juicy upgrade. It was like 20% more damage across the board for everything. And I think it was even more for my Wave of Conviction, which was the main thing I needed to buff up. I was already clearing the map pretty well. If you want to see my progression so far, I'm at 93 out of 154. So I'm pretty much starting the red map grind now, and I've had no problems killing bosses or anything that I've come up against. The only downside to this build so far is just the squishy, but I'm so used to playing squishy builds. I just take it, I take it like a take it like a little bitch. The only other unique in this build is the Call of Brotherhood. I bought this right at the start of the league, so it's a bit more expensive. It's probably a lot cheaper now. And I still need to quality it, because then you can get the conversion higher. But this just converts 40% of our lightning damage to cold, which is nice, because that means we have a lot more cold damage, meaning we shatter and freeze mobs much more reliably, pretty much all the time, because most of our damage is almost cold then with Ice Bite. And that means you're going to proc Herald better, which obviously chain reacts and clears up mobs. And you're also going to proc the next part of this ring, which is spells have 100% chance to shock against frozen enemies. So if you hit something and you freeze it, you then have a 100% chance to shock it. We do a lot of lightning damage as well, so we're getting nice big juicy shocks, and that means we're doing more damage against that enemy for a prolonged period. So it's just a nice synergetic ring for the whole build. It gives you better map clear, and it gives you better single target and more damage. I mean, and it's got some extra stats on it that are not exactly wasted. So it's a very nice ring, and it's extremely cheap. You can probably get one now for probably like 5C. I think I bought mine for like 30C or something because it was the start of the league, so obviously it was a bit more expensive. Helmet, the enchant is not at all required. Like I said, you could go dash. Honestly, apparently a lot of people are using that. Apparently the dash enchant is insane because it makes your dash like double the range. And I keep rubbing my nose, sorry, I got an itchy nose. But I think the 30% increased cast speed is going to be a huge damage increase. It just means when you put the Orb of Storms down, it's going to pretty much instantly, it's like an instant cast skill at that point. You put it down, it's just going to chain react the whole screen straight away. There's no delay. And your Orb of Storms does a substantial bit of damage, so 30% increase, tick rate on the Orb of Storms is a nice damage increase, and it's by far the best enchant for Orb of Storms. If you're going to get an Orb of Storms enchant, get this one. Obviously, if you fall into another one and it's cheap and you find a good deal, then obviously the increased crit one's not bad, but if you're an assassin, it's almost kind of wasted once you've started getting good gear. And then there's obviously a generic increased damage one, but I'd say this is by far the top tier one to get. A necklace, just a dex strength one I needed, and I found this one. This was quite a lucky find, really. If Solo South found this one. I think it's a temple mod because it's got the increased mana, but the mana's really irrelevant. As long as you have like at least 200-300 mana, you should be able to cast your skills fine without running out. You might find you run out a little bit against bosses, but obviously when your map instant to swallow is literally keeping you at full the whole time, and there's enough reservation there for a bit of spam. So, but you're just looking for multi, life, and then any attribute requirements you need. So for me it was dex strength, and I found pretty much the perfect amulet for me at the time. And I crafted some fire, lightning, res, which I think is quite an outdated craft because I'm well over. So I've got a free suffix on there, or prefix, and go either way with that one, which is quite nice. I could even slam it, but I don't think it's worth slamming. But yeah, obviously multi's huge. We're base crit boys, so you want to get that multi and that life. And then I've put freedom of movement on there as my anoint, purely for mapping. It basically just gives you a chance to phase on kill, and it gives you some increased movement speed and dodge while you're phasing. So that's a pure quality of life thing. If you're delving, you need some phasing. It's one of those builds where you're running through mobs sometimes, and if you don't have phasing and delve and stuff, you're just going to get blocked in the darkness, and you're going to die. So whether you get that on you get a flask with phasing, you get a gem like an abyss jewel. It's entirely up to you, but this is an extremely cheap anoint. The only thing you need really is a violet oil, and that's like 5C, not even that probably anymore. And it just makes the build feel so much smoother. Obviously, you can take anything you want. You can take more multi, you can take more life. There's plenty of options on the tree here. Even flask effect could be quite nice with some life there. That's not a bad one. There's obviously some juicy nodes up here, maybe like the cold or lightning damage one. Some of these wheels you could like avoid taking and just take the main node at the end. But for me, quality of life feels good. My other ring is just a diamond ring. It has some nice cold damage on it, and it just had the right stats at the time. This is something I'm going to replace next if I keep upgrading this build. This was purely there as some resistance life, and it had cold damage, and it was on a diamond ring, so it was like damage and stats, so it worked out pretty nicely. The gloves, I bought these gloves, I think they were like 1 to 2x, and the reason why, it's got an essence craft on it, the plus 3.5% base crit for socketed gems. Our socketed gem is Herald of Ice. We're basically using Herald of Ice to just cleave the screen and explode, almost like a pseudo explodey chest. This is less relevant as soon as you get an impulsors or an explodey chest, a proper one, because they carry way harder than this does. But I don't know what it is. I have a fetish for Herald of Ice and Shatters, so I always juice up my Herald. And then I've got the plus. Obviously, it's just got like life, bit of resistances. Obviously, the main essence thing you want on there, a huge dex roll, which was something I needed at the time to hit my requirements, especially for like dash and stuff. It requires a bit more dex than any other thing in your build. So if you went flame dash, you might not have that issue. And then I wanted an open prefix for this betrayal craft, the +1 to AoE, because it gives us +1 to Herald, and Herald's considered a spell, so all the base damage of it's in the spell. So +1 is quite a nice damage increase, but like I said, it's really not necessary. You probably wouldn't even notice the difference if you took the Herald out of this whole setup here and popped in its own link, unlinked, and just ran a map. You'd be like, this is exactly the same, because it will proc and it will look like it's procking just as much, but in theory it's just not doing as much damage. But the impulse is already killing everything anyway, to be honest, other than big bosses and, you know, maybe some juicy uniques and rares. But yeah, and obviously I'll go through the links in a minute for this, but that's what I was rolling there. And for some reason it's a hunter base. I don't know if it has a hunter mod on it. It does not. I could slam it. No, I can't. It's all taken up. I mean, if I took the craft off, I could slam it, but whatever. Here we got Stygian Vise. Nothing special going on here. I bought this quite early on in the league. Just needed some resistances life, and I wanted a Stygian Vise to pop this nice jewel I found. I just found this one. It has some cold damage, line damage, life. So I was like, that'll be better than most belts, obviously. If you're a big boy, go get ahead and earn it. You know, build's complete then. But jokes aside, you're basically just looking for resistance, life. You know, flash charge gains quite a nice quality of life, but then obviously LE damage, so cold or lightning, or just straight up elemental damage. So if you fossil crafted these, I don't know if you can fossil craft them anymore. You might have to get an influenced one somehow. But yeah, I mean, you could always use like a leather belt or any other type of belt that's got influence on it, and obviously get multiple elemental damage rolls on there. With fossils can help that now, but yeah, because fossils got changed unfortunately. But I haven't really thought too much after buying this one. It's doing the job, and I haven't really put increased damage on it as a prefix crafted on. So these boots, which were also self found, I think they dropped with the leech on them, and then I just chaos spammed them. Because I was like, well, the leeches are pretty good at enchant, so let's see if we can find something. And I was initially going to try and sell them because their move speed double T2 resist and a life roll, with obviously damage leech, and obviously the T1 damage leech is only 0.1% higher, which is like nothing. You're not going to feel that difference. But eventually I was like, you know what, these fit my build. I swapped some gear around, it had the correct resistances on it, and damage leech is nice, you know. And any build that has life, damage leech is nice. So, you know, I slapped these on, and these are probably worth like an X maybe. They might have even gone down by now. I had them up for an X and they didn't sell, so they're probably worth less than that, to be honest. But there are loads of enchants that are good. Obviously all the move speed ones, the damage penetration, the added cold if you've killed recently, and there's a fire one. I think the cold ones if you've been hit, and then the fire ones if you've killed recently. They're all good. Obviously dodge if you've killed recently or critted recently. There's ones like that. Most of them are pretty solid for the build, even the regen one. I mean, they all help, just some are slightly better than others. And the Caspi one would be pretty good actually. Would probably be up there as a T1 with the penetration. So yeah, and that is the gear. So the gems I'm using for my single target, I've gone Wave of Conviction. You can use anything you want. You could use Ball Lightning, you could use Arc, you could use something else. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But those were the three I was considering. I haven't tried Ball Lightning yet because Wave of Conviction's been doing the job. But yeah, I'm using Wave of Conviction. I got 2020 here. Then I've linked it with Controlled Destruction. It's a more multiplier. Reduced crit basically means nothing for us. We have so much crit. Fizz to Lightning, because you want to convert the rest of the physical damage to an element, so all your elemental damage is scaling that properly. And obviously in Fizz to Lightning with base lightning, I mean, we convert a lot of it to cold afterwards, but you know, getting it all to lightning so then we can convert it, it all helps. And obviously it adds like physical as extra lightning as well. It's quite a good damage gem as well. Then I've got Arcane Surge, so after I've cast 345 mana, I'm going to get more cast speed, more damage, increased cast speed, and even more spell damage, because if it's linked to it, it does more. And as you can see, when you're spamming, it will proc on a boss, so you'll get a big juicy proc on a boss. We have a crappy leveled one in our dash setup, so when we are mapping, we're getting the benefit of just the first line, just the, I think it's 10% or like 12% more damage from our dash. But when this one procs, it's going to give 19% more damage, and it also gives another 19% more damage because if it's linked with it, it gets the extra. So, and it gives us some mana regen, which is quite nice for spamming. And as you can see, my mana alert, it takes quite a while before I'm actually out of mana and can't really cast. But obviously when you're running around killing stuff on bosses as well, you got to dodge stuff anyway, so while you're waiting to dodge stuff, your mana will replenish quite quickly. And then we're using Spell Echo. Obviously we're getting 2 for the price of 1. You know, it's going to double cast it, and it does it so quickly. You barely lock down, honestly. You get used to it after a few times. You know, a few bosses, you'll get used to the delay it adds. I can't speak. But yeah, it's just it basically doubles your damage for free, right? Like barely any cost. So that's an obvious choice. Then if I had another link, it would probably be Inspiration Support, because it's a more elemental damage multiplier. You can obviously swap out Arcane Surge for something else as well. I mean, you could go Crit Multi, maybe, would be a good choice, since we have so much crit. But yeah, I'm just leveling a Ellie Pro Lift, so don't worry about that. That was just a spare slot that I'm not utilising. In my helmet, I've got a Curse on Hit, Ellie Weakness, Herald of Thunder action going on, and then I've got a Flame Dash now, just leveling it. I was using it, it's almost 20/20, so I might as well level it up. You can obviously use this instead of Dash, it's entirely up to you. I was using it for the longest time, but I switched to Dash because I just think it feels a little bit better. You lose a little bit of distance if you don't have the enchant, but it just feels better. Curse on Hit with Herald of Thunder, when you shock something, you're obviously going to start zapping everything, and it's quite a rapid cast speed on it. To be fair, it zaps so much stuff, so obviously anything that lasts longer than getting one shot, it's going to get zapped, it's going to get Ellie Weakness. You're doing a lot more damage because this is minus 43%. I haven't done the damage calculation, but I think it's better than Assassin's Mark. Increased damage taken, you know, and we don't need the power charges, so we don't get the benefit from that neither. So I think Ellie Weakness is your best curse. If you can get Curse on Hit on gloves, that'd be nutty. If you can add Assassin's Mark in as well with an additional curse, mad damage. So that's something to think about. But yeah, and it doesn't increase the cost of Herald doing this. As you can see, our Herald of Thunder still reserves 25% mana, which I think is base, right? So having a Curse on Hit on this is free. So it's like, why the hell not? Free link for that. That is a lot of damage. Minus 43% elemental resistance is a lot of basically free penetration. So I definitely recommend that. It's a very cheap setup for Curse on Hit. Obviously you can get on a ring, you can get on your gloves, but for now, at the start of a league where you know you want to be doing everything as efficiently as possible and you can't just have the best gear, that is a great setup. In our main link, we're using Orb of Storms 6 linked. Honestly, you could swap this out, have Wave of Conviction 6 linked and Orb of Storms 5 linked, and it'd probably be a little bit better, but I've just kept this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Orb of Storms into chain support, obviously it chains, so if you add chain support, it just becomes an absolute map clearing, screen clearing god. I've got Inspiration Support on here, so when you first go into a map, you probably want to spam a bit more, so you get those charges up, and then after that, they'll stay up for freaking ages, from many casts. And that's like increased crit and more Ellie damage, and it reduces the cost of the mana, so that's obviously going to be really nice for Wave Conviction as well, so you can spam it more. So honestly, you could probably swap Inspiration Support instead of Arcane Surge, to be honest, for a 5 link, and it'd probably be just, if not stronger. Got Controlled Destructions, more multiplier, biggest more multiplier for spell damage, but obviously the crit doesn't matter because we got so much of it. Air of Effects, so you know it zaps as much as it can in the and you know as soon as you put it down, because it does cast below you. It's not something you can cast off screen, so you have to like run towards the pack and then press it, and it'll blow them up. And then we use Ice Bite purely for frenzy generation. It gives us some nice added cold damage, which is always nice, but we're not really utilizing the frenzy per, you know, added cold damage per frenzy charge. We're basically just using it for frenzy generation. Frenzy generation is good because frenzies give you more damage per frenzy. It is only 4%, so we're only getting 12% more damage, but that plus the added damage it adds from the gem together, and you know, some extra chance to freeze and stuff, it's a very good gem. You could maybe put someone like Hypothermia in here, probably more damage, maybe good for a single target swap. But in terms of that, I would just, that works for me, you know what I mean? That's probably the only one I would consider swapping out, and then maybe Inspiration Support for something else, if you can figure out something that does way more damage. But like I said, it's already doing the job, so I've had no issues with it so far. The Herald of Ice is 4 linked with increased crit. Once again, we're just increasing that crit chance for Herald of Ice because it has no base crit, so you have to add the base crit yourself. We obviously get base crit on the gem there, 1.9. We got 3.5 on the gloves. We get an extra 2% when we're at max powers because of the ascendancy. So Herald of Ice chance to crit in this build, Sane Town, is we've got 31% Sane Town with no power charges and all that juice, which is pretty good for a gem that's supposed to have no crit. As you can see, it has no crit. See under mana reservation cooldown time, you can see here on Orb of Storms it says it has 5% base crit. This has 0, and it's at 31% sat in the hideout. So then it's obviously linked to increased area, so the explosions are bigger and it chain reacts a little bit easier. And then we've got Innovate support. It will explode. It will do a lot of damage, considering it's just a Herald, right? And it will proc this. It will give you some added lightning damage. So every now and then you get a nice little bit of extra added lightning damage. You could probably put Onslaught in here, and probably get a free source of Onslaught, but since I'm using a Cinder Swallow, not necessary. And you know, you're not going to have either of them up for a boss anyway, so for the most part, obviously, once you've used all your flask charges. And then I'm using Dash, Second Wind. This is the OP technique. We're getting 2 dashes, and the cooldown of that, you pretty much have unlimited dashes. And Dash just feels so much more responsive than Flame Dash, like 50% of the time, because Flame Dash has this weird non-instant cast when it's on like 1 charge or something. I can't explain what it is, but it just feels weird sometimes. But Dash doesn't. Just make sure you don't have it on always attack with move. I know you press this for pretty much every skill in the game, but if you do, you'll dash backwards, which could be utilised against a boss, but it just feels weird, so watch out for that. Then I've got Arcane Surge. It does have a mana cost. It will proc Arcane Surge. Just make sure your Arcane Surge is low enough level that it procs on 1 cast. So for me, I've got that perfectly set up right now. So every time I cast, I refresh Arcane Surge. It's always up during mapping because I'm constantly dashing around. And I've just got Stone Golem in there because at the time I had a bit of issue with some Life Regen. But now I've got Leech. I could definitely swap that out. I've got 2 sockets here at least that I can do something with. I'm thinking maybe I cast on Death Portal, because Delirium kind of helps, you know, with that, because if you die in the middle of a Delirium, you can just go back to where you were and it's not an issue. And I've been talking way too much, so I need to hurry up. And then flasks, you know, standard life bleed flask, crit flask, probably in the end game you might be able to swap that out, but it's always nice to have a crit flask because we're a crit build. Super move speed flask, any move speed flask will do, but obviously I've got the juicy one that gives you even more. Cinder Swallow was about 60C for a crappy enchant on it. You can get one with crit on it, and it's just better, but obviously because you need to add some sort of fire damage to spells somewhere, whether that's an Abyssal or like me, I've got it on my staff now to proc this. It not only just refills all your health and energy shield and mana as you're just charging through the map and gives you Onslaught, because it's an Onslaught based flask. It also does 10% more damage basically, because when they're ignited they take 10% more damage, which is effectively a more multiplier because it's the only take effect that we've got in the build. And then Azura's Promise could probably be swapped out. It's more there for boosting Wave Conviction because it gets benefit from both aspects of it. But it's also nice to have a bit of extra Chaos Res because I have none in my gear, so I'm at minus 60 without it, so I'm getting one shot by anything that does Chaos damage, so that could be swapped out. Maybe for a Taste of Hate. Maybe. Taste of Hate wouldn't be that good for it'd be good for your Wave Conviction because it's Fizz, remember, it's Fizz based. So the tree, right. The tree's pretty generic. Obviously we're Assassin, so we've taken Mistwalker, first point, OP. Elusive is super strong, even though it got slightly nerfed. And then we're obviously taking the power charges, power charge nodes here. And then we're just getting like more multi, base crit, move speed, pretty much unlimited generation of power charges and a maximum power charge. And I've gone Assassinate, Ambush Assassinate, because I just prefer it for mapping. Culling Strike's also really strong, but if you want more single target damage and a bit of extra toughness, go opportunistic. You're going to get move speed, so you are going to be faster as well in terms of move speed. You're going to be doing 25% more damage. That's been buffed. I just feel like they're so close. I just think this one just edges out a little bit because Culling Strike's technically a 10% more multiplier, and then you're also getting the more crit against high and low life. At least for bossing, I mean, at least for mapping, that's way better because as soon as you put your Orbital Storms down, you get basically guaranteed a crit, so you're going to shatter and explode everything. So it just feels way smoother for mapping. But either or is entirely I mean, I think they're literally on par with each other, to be honest. And then in terms of the tree, pretty generic. We're taking all the spell, crit, and increased area and damage, and any life we can pick up. So obviously you can see what's going on here. I don't really have to explain everything. There's nothing really special apart from this bit here, which is the new special nodes that I'm using. And obviously I'm using a staff, so this wheel here is huge for crit. So if you're going to get any crit wheel, get this one. But yeah, you can see I've just tried to take all the life I can, really, and then all the area damage and the crit and the extra power charge, because this node up here gives you spell damage per power charge, which is quite strong since we have like 5, so it's a nice little bit of spell damage. So I have taken a large cluster jewel. It's a lightning one, which has 3 notables on it. Obviously this is not the perfect combination. I'm using whatever I got given and whatever I crafted. So we actually have this overshot one, which I think is probably one of the more powerful ones. It makes your shock increased damage taken by up to 60. So it's usually 50, so you can go up to 60% increased damage the mob can take. And then it gives us effective shocked as well, which increases that even more, and it gives us a shit ton of lightning damage, and so does each node here. Then we've got some increased area and elemental damage, pretty good for us. Then I've gone into a medium cluster that's an area damage cluster jewel that has increased area damage and area of effect per power charge, generic area damage mod, area damage, area of effect, multi, and then we've gone into a increased life jewel, and we picked up 4 max life and 6 max life, and then some regen. But this is like a 2-pointer for 12% life, very juicy. So that's a pretty nice. I mean, if you want to try and copy that, I've got this one here that gives 8 damage pen, but like I said, not all our damage is just lightning pens. 8%, it's really almost cut in half. And I just don't think it's as strong, not even for 2 points or even 1 point there, you see, that's a 1-pointer. I mean, I might take it next time I level up. I am level 90. But in terms of that, it's pretty good. I'm making sure my timer doesn't go off in your ear. So, that's... and I think that's pretty much it. My Pantheons, I haven't done anything with my Pantheons. I swap these out based on what I'm doing. You know, if there's Burning Ground everywhere, I'm taking the Burning Ground. If I'm in lab, I'm taking the flask charges, you know. I never care about Pantheon, so sorry about that. And I think that's it. I definitely recommend this build. It is very strong. And there's the cosmetics I'm using if you want to copy my look or whatever. It's a very strong build. It's scaled extremely well, all the way from nothing to where I am now. Obviously, I got a little bit lucky with that div card to have a good influx of currency to make my weapon and maybe buy like the gloves. But I probably could have got to the same point without that. And it's just playing the game. It is an extremely easy build to gear for, and it has some extra flexibility. You don't have to use Wave Conviction. You can use Ball Lightning. I think Ball Lightning could be really good. Arc, I was using Arc all the way up to the point where my Orbital Storms was pretty much clearing the screen, and then I thought, there's no point of Arc, because Arc does decent amount of single target as well, because it will do more damage for the less time it chains. So if it only hits one enemy, it's doing a lot more damage per hit. So you could try that, and it'll help with your clear as well, if that was needed. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this build guide type overview thing. This was a 40-minute video. I try to make it as quick as possible, but I like to explain everything. God damn it. But yeah, if you have any questions, or if I've breezed over anything and you're a little bit confused about anything, then leave a comment down below. And if you want to come watch me live stream and watch the build in action, then check down below for my Twitch stream. And I will see you in the next video. If you're still here, you're a legend. And stay frosty, boys. Peace out.